friends, after the annual session, before we decided the final strategy and the theme for CII for the current year, we had an internal National Council meeting with 180 business leaders together and debated on our theme and strategy for the year ahead. This is a unique year and therefore a time for us to think out of the box. Our theme for 2020-21 is Building India in a New World, Lives, Livelihood, Growth. And friends, this is truly a transformational time as we go through this period. Normally, at our first briefing with media after the appointment of new leadership team, we normally present the estimates and outlook for GDP and economic parameters. Taking a turn from the past, we have decided this year not to predict GDP. Frankly, no one knows. It is all estimates and guesstimates, and the real world will pan itself out through this year. And we therefore are going beyond numbers and just putting numbers on assumptions which are very difficult to predict, to really go into the heart of the matters which will be important for us in the context of building India for a truly new world. And therefore, we have decided the theme to have 10 lenses of how we will look at in terms of being a part of India's development, building and growth story in the years ahead. At the National Council, we have also collectively, along with my colleagues, Narendran and Sanjeev, and of course, CB, we have decided to have a medium-term outlook for strategy, because in building India for the new world, it is a continuum of strategy and not just this year. Therefore, CII comes out with a game plan, which is, of course, taking cognizance of the short term, but also building India for the medium term as we go forward. And with this unanimity in our leadership team, I'm happy to announce the 10 lenses through which CII would like to chart its strategy for growth and development of our nation, keeping in mind the strong message and direction which we have received from the Prime Minister of India. And here are our 10 important parts of the strategy. First is protecting lives and livelihoods. COVID-19 is probably a once-in-a-century event. It has taken all of us by surprise in a sense and off guard. And this is true for the entire world. And as we stand here today, we realize that COVID-19 has significant challenges in terms of the impact on lives through the virus itself. And there has been a massive loss of lives around the world. India is relatively fortunate that the total number of deaths as a percentage of our population is amongst the lowest in the world. Having said that, we need to guard and protect Indians against the loss of lives because of the virus. The second part of that is, as a part of that strategy, we have decided to have a lockdown from 24th of March. And lockdown, again, is complicated, certainly needed to reduce the speed of transmission of the virus, but has an impact in terms of potential impact to livelihoods. And it is here that we need to constantly ask ourselves, how do we get this balance between loss of lives through the virus versus potential loss of lives through loss of livelihood? And the government, and we will work with the government to find the right balance between these two very, very challenging situations. The issue about the lockdown is also getting in is easy. Getting out is like getting out of a Chakravyuh. And it is complicated. We have started lockdown 1.0. We have started opening up 1.0, and the gradual process of opening up is underway. But there are complexities. And along with those complexities run the risk of loss of livelihoods. And therefore, we really need to redefine our strategy into what effectively is three worlds. The first world, which is what I would say prior to March 2020, I call it as the BC world. I'm borrowing from Thomas Friedman. BC world is before Corona. We are now preparing for the AC world, which is after Corona. And we are addressing and discussing this in the DC world, which is during Corona. So we need to get a fair harmonization of the three worlds which we are in. BC is behind us, and things will change from the BC world. DC is the present, and AC is hopefully our future. The big question in everybody's mind is how long is the DC world, where Corona still continues with, at this stage, no significant cure in sight, nor a vaccine round the corner. So in this backdrop, the first challenge for all of us Indians is protecting lives and livelihoods and getting that balance right as we struggle across the world through that challenge. Second, we are redefining priorities for India. And we are now bringing right to the top the priority of healthcare and education. One of the things which you come into the middle of this whole process of COVID-19, we realize that our investment in healthcare needs to be significantly stepped up from current 1.3% of GDP. I think about health and healthcare for our future like the defense of India. Just as we have significant commitment to spending for India's military defense, time has come for us to significantly upgrade India's health defense against any enemy which comes forward. And therefore, investing in the whole healthcare chain, sanitation, upgrading the quality of health professionals, the facilities, the infrastructure, the distribution across the country, and a whole host of things, including e-medicine, and getting digital as a core part of healthcare is also important. And therefore, we need to reimagine India from the lens of healthcare. And on behalf of CII, I would strongly reprioritize the nation's investment in healthcare to a significant extent, at some level, right at the top of our charts in terms of priority. We also need to build a sustainable foundation for our future. We need education. We need to get best-in-class quality of our doctors, nurses. It's just not the number of degrees which we have given out to medical professionals. It is the quality, it's quality of our medical research, it's quality of the people we have, including the new world of technology. And therefore, CII puts healthcare and education as the topmost priority for India's future as we build India in this new world. The next important priority, friends, is again something which you would consider as out of the box from the point of view of an economic institution like CII. And the next important priority, friends, is Mother Nature. Mother Nature has demonstrated its power, whether it's COVID, whether it is the cyclones which have hit both the east and the west coast of India, whether it is locust attacks, or whether in the COVID period, the cleanliness of our skies and the air, which demonstrates that the world over, we have taken liberty with Mother Nature, which needs to be significantly corrected. And climate change and sustainability are an integral part of us handling the issue of significant harmony for us humans on this planet with Mother Nature. And whatever we need to invest for our future, Mother Nature has to be at that top in our medium-term perspective of building India for a new world. So as I look at these top three priorities, which is immediate, protecting lives and livelihood, significant focus on investment in healthcare and education, and reharmonizing humanity with healthcare are something which are very dear to all our hearts. And I can share this not only on my behalf and my leadership team, but the entire National Council of CII. Moving forward, friends, for doing all this, we will need to spend money. And that brings us to a very crucial balancing act between our ability as a country to do fiscal spending versus financial stability. And on that, I would like to say that India is fortunate. On the external account, India's position is very strong. Our current account deficit for the year 2021 is likely to be zero. We have been significantly helped by oil and sharp drop in gold imports. And at the same time, we sit with very significant foreign exchange reserves. Therefore, unlike 2013, when India was amongst the fragile five in the world, on the external count, India is in a good macroeconomic stable situation. However, as India will spend more and as fiscal deficit inevitably expands because of shortfalls in revenue, India will run higher fiscal deficits. And the internal fiscal challenges for financial stability will be an issue which we will have to balance between our aspiration to deal with the pandemic and therefore protect Indians and Indian business, at the same time ensuring financial stability. A warning shot, as we are aware, was fired by Moody's a few days ago. It's my view is, finally, while ratings are a matter of opinion, what is contained in the ratings is something which we need to keep in mind so that we don't have a sharp increase in costs of borrowings by Indians and Indian companies from the overseas markets, as also sharp withdrawal of money should there be significant drop in financial stability parameters. Having said that, India will have to spend boldly and find the resources to meet the challenges which we are in. But overall, a fair balance between fiscal deficit increase and maintaining financial stability are something which will be an important lens for looking at our medium term and the short term aspirations. Fifth, COVID-19 has impacted three important economic agents. First is directly the individuals and businesses. Therefore, an individual whose job is impacted or a business which finds a very sharp drop in its revenue will suddenly flounder at a time like this. Therefore, there is an impact cost coming out of the virus and the subsequent lockdowns. So the first impact cost from an economic agent point of view is individuals and businesses. Thereafter, the impact on the government. And the government takes a significant economic cost out of this. If we go back to the fiscal deficit center and state, which was presented in February, the most analysts anticipated the combined fiscal deficit center plus states at around 6.5% of GDP. Instead now, most analysts expect that this number, including the economic package which has been announced by the government, will take this number to somewhere around 11 to 12% of GDP. So this increase is something which is already factored in. The question is, will this be enough? Will the government have to take even more costs protecting, and how does it balance with the earlier point of deficit versus stability? It probably needs to spend more. And we have to figure out where we draw the line. But to the extent that the fiscal deficit goes from, say, 6.5 to 11.5% of combined GDP, of combined fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP, a 5 percentage point increase in deficit is increase of loss of the government by 10 lakh crores. So that is the financial impact which the government, center and state, as of now, looks like it is taking because of the pandemic. And the third part of this economic agent is what I call as the residual but significant player, which is the financial sector. Therefore, to the extent that individuals and businesses cannot absorb the shock, or the government is unable to protect these businesses and individuals from the shock after the significant increase in their deficits, the balance impact inevitably comes on the financial sector. And here, the fragility of the financial sector needs to be kept in mind, and the need for having a solid risk capital base for the Indian financial sector is key for our future. And therefore, we need to carefully calibrate how the pain is distributed in this era of the pandemic between individuals and businesses, the government, and the financial sector. So that is my point number 5. Point number 6, COVID changes the balance. That's today's meeting in the virtual world which we are having is a demonstration of that change. If we were in the erstwhile physical world, Sanjeev, Narendran, and I would have got up in the morning, taken a plane from the airport to come to Delhi, then after landing at the Delhi airport, taken a car, come to a place where Chandrajit would have asked us to meet before the press meet, which most likely would be either CII office or a hotel. And thereafter, after initial physical meeting, which we may have had, we would have had a physical meeting with all of you, which of course would be carried on both physically and electronically. But COVID has changed that, and we can see this in front of our eyes. So how does the balance between the physical world and digital world impact our future? And it is this change which we need to factor in terms of reimagining and rebuilding our future in the post-COVID world. And what does it do to the future of office space, malls, the balances between e-commerce and real-world shopping, the nature of jobs, the significant need for skilling, and the need for significantly upgrading our investments in science, technology, and digital, skilling our people in the digital world are all the challenges. We are also fortunate that we have phenomenal broadband connectivity. Therefore, every village of India can take advantage of digital. And in that perspective, I must compliment Prime Minister's vision many years ago that digital is the core to India's future. We can see it play out today, that working from home is entirely feasible thanks to technology and digital, which is a part of our lives. So we need to calibrate the impact on the economy and use the right levers to push economic growth, keeping in mind a fundamental rebalancing between the physical world and the digital world, which is a part of the new world order going forward. Next, point number 7, future of jobs and social security. The need for reskilling, the need for getting people to be future ready for this new world. And I talked about the priority on education, which is certainly a medium-term requirement. But jobs may not be the same as they are. And we need to recalibrate this world. And there is a risk that some of the jobs may change forever. How is the society and how is policy going to deal with the issues of social security and fairness to the citizens of India? It's a very important policy question which needs debate, and it will come to the forefront in the times ahead as India builds for this new world. Next, rural-urban rebalance. Friends, in my life, I've always grown up all the way to now, where migration was traditionally from rural to urban. And as more and more people moved out of agriculture and sought opportunity, it was coming to a big city. I recollect the famous Raj Kapoor movie, which said, Mumbai, the Jadui Nagri. It attracted everybody, including people for wanting to come and become movie stars. Cities were the engine for migrants to come and make a living and create opportunity. This was the core of how India was, rural to urban. For the first time in my life and our lives, we have seen reverse migration. We have seen urban moving to rural. People who came to cities with hope and aspiration and who continued to work for many years, some of them in slums with very poor working conditions and insecurity of permanent jobs, but still trudged along because the income levels for them were higher than what they got back in their villages. They went through huge struggles and lived in cities despite all the urban infrastructure challenges many cities had. Some of them have asked the tough question, is this life in the manner in which we have lived worth living? I am okay with lower income, but I want to go back to my village and be with my family. I will figure a way out. This is a new reality, friends, and we need to deal with this and recognize this. I am therefore looking at this as us recalibrating our base assumptions. How do we get opportunities in rural? The good news now compared to the past is the phenomenal connectivity of rural India as well, as I mentioned. Can we create jobs? Why can't a person in rural India sitting in a village with good connectivity get a job at Google? Why can't we dream of creating the whole concept, in addition to focusing on making India the manufacturing hub? Why not think about making India the office of the world, whether it is from a city or a village? Connectivity is there. Reimagination is something which we need to put to work. And in that context, friends, we also need to see how do we get more rural jobs, rural infrastructure, spend agricultural productivity, and the whole host of opportunities which a rural and a cleaner part of India. It is not crowded. It does not have slums. It is a better lifestyle. How do we create the opportunity out of a adversity where so much of migration has happened in the last few months? How do we transform this to making a lot of rural India the engine for the future of India? I see a very significant ability to retransform our future in this part of the country. Ninth, we have 4 levers of growth: investment, consumption, net exports, and government spending. If I look at the last many years, we have been disproportionately dependent on government spending, followed by consumption as the core of our growth. The 2 areas which we need to buck up on are the areas of private investment and exports. Entrepreneurs need to get that animal spirit back. And in that context, the PM's comfort that we will get growth back should be a bugle sounded for all entrepreneurs to think about how we can invest and take the risks. And the government is a partner with us in building this future. Private investment is going to be the key for us to get sustainable growth back. Yes, in the short run, we need steps for getting demand back, but getting demand back without dramatically increasing supply over a period of time is not a sustainable strategy. And finally, if we are truly competitive, if we are truly Atmanirbhar, our exports must flourish. We must be competitive out there to be able to compete in the export market with the best quality nations of the world. And therefore, getting the two levers of growth, investment and exports, is the key for our future. And finally, after all these points, friends, if there's one thing which is clear to me and all of us at CII, for India's future, growth is an imperative. It is a non-negotiable point. We have to go out there, grow India, transform ourselves, and not be cowed down by what is happening in the immediate COVID era. Let us start thinking about the AC era while we are still in DC, and have the courage and conviction that India as a nation will shine out, and it is up to us as all responsible members of society, collectively as Indians, to make this dream happen. And friends, this entire 10 points which I have discussed comes in the backdrop of something I have deeply believed in. I call it, in simple language, governance. And governance is doing things right and doing the right things. And this importance of governance is, of course, certainly for companies, but I think it's a broader issue of governance of the nation. We want this aspect of governance in all our public bodies, in all our public institutions, to be accountable, to govern with niti, to govern with aspiration, and to transform India. Governance of society at large is an extremely important set, and governance of companies is a subset of this larger governance framework India needs to continue to improve on. We have seen significant improvements in the last many years, but there is a long way to go for us to be at cutting edge of governance for our future. And in that context, I think getting the balance between the big and the small. The big also needs protection and from the shocks in a positive manner, but big also need to protect the smaller companies like the MSMEs, creating a vendor chain, getting a supply chain, holding the hands as we build towards a better future for India. And I will end by saying that the Prime Minister's 5 I's, intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, and innovation, ring a bell with all of us at CII, and we are deeply committed to building an India in the years ahead as all Indians collectively aspire to better life and a better quality of living. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.